Hi, I'm John, and welcome to my garage. I own a Fresh Breeze Simonini 200cc paramotor, and right now it's winter in Alaska and it's cold, and this thing hasn't been running real well, so I thought I'd put together a short video to show you how to adjust your carburetor jetting so that your paramotor could run well in cold weather. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this paramotor. Here's the back, and specifically this is a Bing carburetor. It's a Bing 84 carburetor, and a couple of the features. Here's the air box right here. This is the carburetor itself. This is the fuel line going in. Here's a breather tube. Here's the choke mechanism. Here's the line going into the engine. This is the intake manifold. Most issues affecting internal combustion engine performance can be boiled down to three things: good spark, good air, and good gas or fuel. This engine uses a NKG B10ES spark plug, properly gapped. The air box has an air filter in it, so if you're flying inside of dusty areas, might want to check that air filter inside there, make sure it's not clogged and good air is getting into the carburetor. And always want to use good fuel. I use avgas with synthetic oil. I know that's a little controversial in our sport, but I have a cylinder head temperature gauge, and my CHT readout helps me keep a good handle on what's going on with the engine temperature. Okay, the two manuals I'm operating from are the Simonini Owner's Manual. You can download that off the internet. And then this one is from Pro Carb Shop, and you have to buy this. You have to call them up. Here's the information, but I highly recommend having this. Here's a quick breakdown of the Bing 84 carburetor with parts and jetting and other equipment. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to take off the carburetor and show you how that works. First thing we want to do is turn off the fuel with the stopcock, and we'll come around this side here and start working on taking off the carburetor. Actually has two hose clamps that are pretty easy. Just loosen up off the air box there. Okay, and then on the engine side, same thing. Okay, and then on the top of the carburetor you have two bolts. And out comes the cylinder. And you can see the jet needle sticking out the bottom there. I'm going to leave that all together for now. And next we need to take off our fuel line, which is right here. It's always good to have something to catch the fuel with. Alright, so that's that. Okay, so we have the carburetor off. The Bing carburetor is a float carburetor as opposed to a diaphragm carburetor. Here's the bowl at the bottom of the carburetor, and at the very bottom of the bowl is a well, and then we have a spring clip that kind of holds the bowl up to the rest of the carburetor. This is the airbox side, and this is the engine side right here. Let's see, a couple other features now that we have it off. Here's your choke for cold start. This is your idle speed adjustment screw right here. You can actually see that inside here. It comes out right there, and I can screw it in or screw it out to raise the cylinder to allow more air in there. More air means faster idle speed. Right here is your fuel air mixture screw, and turning it in makes it more rich, so more fuel to air ratio. Turning it clockwise in and turning it out adds more air and leans it out. So what I'd like to do now is to change the main jet. Okay, so now we're going to try and replace the main jet. So that's in the bottom of the carburetor. This one is a 165 orifice, and I need to reduce that because at full throttle I'm getting lots of rich mixture, and I'll tell you how I know that in a minute. But I want to take out this main jet that the jet needle fits into and replace it with a 155. And just a matter of screwing it into place and seating it down, this little crescent. Not too tight because it's brass threads. Before I put this carb back together, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. We said this was the main jet already. This right here is the idle jet, and what that looks like is this piece right here. These are pretty expensive actually, about $20 for this one, whereas the main jets are only about $9. So anyway, we're going to put the floats back in the bowl, and then we're going to insert the bowl in the bottom of the carb and put it all back together. So let me just show you how that goes. Here's the screen, and basically what this does is it prevents vortices from forming around the suction. Doesn't really do much to filter the fuel. Then you want to line up the bowl with the carburetor gasket. So we'll turn that and orient it correctly. And you want to be real careful to drop this in real gently. Don't force anything. It should seat in there real nice. And then put the spring clip back in place. And that's it. Okay, well, now that we got the Bing carburetor, Bing 84 carburetor all back together, I just wanted to say that there's three ranges you got to pay attention to. What it's doing at idle, and for the idle it's going to be using this idle speed screw and the fuel mixture screw. In addition, inside it's going to be using an idle jet, and what I've done, because it's colder out, the air is denser, it tends to lean out the mixture. I've added the next size up for the idle jet, so it was at a 40, now it's at a 45, and so that just makes a little bigger orifice to allow more fuel to go in at idle speed. Then when you increase the throttle from a quarter throttle to 3/4 throttle, you're using your jet needle inside of the needle jet. I didn't show you that before, but it's actually a little above the main jet. And then of course the main jet is for the high throttle from 3/4 up to full throttle. So what I was getting is I was getting pretty good range from throttle up to 3/4, and then it started flooding out. So what I did is I reduced my main jet. I wanted to show you this particular thing. It's called a Gunson color tune, and it's very clever. Someone took a spark plug and they basically put a Pyrex glass inside, and basically you can see through this spark plug, and so it allows you to see the spark as you move through different throttle positions. And basically you're looking for a blue colored spark as opposed to an orange color. Orange meaning it would be very rich. If it's white, it's very lean, and you're looking for blue. So using this Gunson color tune, which costs about 40 bucks, you can get a perfect tune all the way as you move through from idle up to full throttle. Okay, well, I've got the Bing all back together and back on the engine. Except for the air box, I wanted to show you how the actuation of the throttle moves the cylinder in the Bing carburetor. So you can see as I depress it, the cylinder is opening up, allowing more air as well as fuel in, and it raises that needle up, that jet needle, up out of the well, allowing more fuel to flow into the carburetor. Okay, we got a paramotor on the rack, so now it's time to do the fuel testing and to see how well that main jet works. There's no fuel in the carburetor, so it may take a little bit to get it going. Let's see what we can do. Try the electric start first. Clear prop. Okay, well, now we did our outside test, and now what I'd like to use is the color tune to check out the flame of the spark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the original spark plug. And you can see there's this wire on here. This is actually the probe that measures the cylinder head temperature, CHT gauge. And here's our color tune. I'm going to go ahead and put this probe back on that so I can keep track of the temperature of the engine as well. This thing has a little plastic adapter for tightening it up. Then on the end of this goes this little flexible tube, and that screws right on the end, like so. And that fits into your spark plug wire. And that allows you to look up in there and see the flame. And of course I use a mirror for that. We're going to go out and do that right now. Okay, we're outside again. We got the color tune spark plug plugged in, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can see the color of the spark as we cycle through different throttle settings. Well, you could see by the color tune test, hopefully, that as I increased the throttle, the flame got more yellow. That indicates an increasingly rich mixture. They say idle is supposed to be blue. As it goes through mid-range throttle, it's supposed to be a little bit whitish blue, and then as it goes into full throttle, it does get a little more rich and a little more yellow. I'm going to play with it a little more. I'm not saying you got to have all this equipment, but it is nice to have a tachometer so you can look at your engine speed, and also CHT gauge for measuring your engine temperature, and then going by the recommended specs from the manufacturer. So anyway, hope it was helpful for you. Good luck to you and happy flying.